There was a campfire out there, miles from any trail, miles from any road, miles from anyone, and it had been burning all night. I have been backcountry camping for 11 years. Not car camping, not campgrounds with bathrooms and fire rings and neighbors 20 feet away. I mean real backcountry. Days from the nearest road. No trails, no markers. Just a map and a compass and whatever I can carry on my back. I have done solo trips in 6 different states. I know what wilderness looks and sounds and feels like. I am telling you this because what I saw that night had no business being there. And I want you to understand that when I say I knew something was wrong, I knew. Not nervousness, not inexperience. Something was genuinely wrong. This was 2 summers ago in a wilderness area in northern Montana. 3 days in, completely off trail, camped on a ridgeline with a clear view of the valley below. The nearest trail was 9 miles west. The nearest road was 14 miles south. I had not seen another person since day 1, and I had not expected to. I made camp just before dark, ate, and sat outside my tent for a while watching the stars come out.
Around 10 o'clock, I was about to turn in when I saw it. A light in the valley below. At first, I thought it was a reflection. Moonlight off water maybe, or a bioluminescent log, something natural. But it was too orange, too steady, too much like a fire. I watched it for several minutes. It did not move, it did not flicker the way a flashlight would. It burned with the consistency of a campfire, the same warm, contained glow. I pulled out my map and tried to estimate the distance. Roughly 2 miles down into the valley, maybe slightly northeast. There was nothing on my map that would explain why anyone would be there. No trail, no campsite, no road access anywhere close. To get to that spot on foot from the nearest trail would take the better part of a day. I watched it for over an hour. It never changed. Whoever had built that fire had built it well. It held through the night without any visible tending. No flare-ups, no dimming, just a steady orange point of light 2 miles below me in a valley where nobody should have been. I went to sleep eventually because I did not know what else to do. I told myself there was a rational explanation. Another backcountry camper who had come in from a direction I didn't know about. A Forest Service worker doing overnight monitoring. Something explainable. In the morning, I decided to go look. It took me almost 3 hours to get down into the valley and work my way northeast to where I had estimated the fire was. The terrain was rough. Dense brush, a creek crossing, a section of deadfall that cost me 40 minutes. But I found it. A fire ring. Stones arranged in a careful circle, maybe 18 inches across. Inside the ring, ash and charred wood. I crouched down and held my palm over the ash. Still warm. Not hours old warm, recently warm. The kind of warm that means a fire went out not long before I got there. I stood up and looked around. No tent, no gear, no food bags hung in the trees, no trash, no footprints, no sign that anyone had camped here for any length of time. I looked at the ground more carefully. The soil around the fire ring was soft enough to hold prints. I circled the ring slowly, widening my search area with each pass. Nothing. No boot prints, no shoe prints, no impressions of any kind in the soil around that fire ring. Not approaching it, not leaving it. A fire that had burned through the night, still warm when I arrived 3 hours after dawn, and no evidence that any person had ever stood anywhere near it. I left that valley faster than I had entered it. I have replayed that morning many times since. I have tried to construct explanations. Wind-scattered prints, rocky ground I might have missed, a second approach route I did not check. But the soil around that ring was soft and consistent, and I searched it carefully. There were no prints. I finished that trip 2 days early. I have been back to Montana twice since. I have not gone back to that valley. If that one got under your skin, go ahead and hit the like button. Story 2 is next, and this one starts with a sound. A voice calling your name. There were 3 of us on this trip. Me, my friend Joel, and a guy named Marcus, who I had met through Joel and had hiked with twice before. We were 5 days into a backcountry trip in a wilderness area in Oregon, completely off trail for the last 3 days, camped beside a small lake that does not appear on most maps. It was our 3rd night at that lake. We had settled into a comfortable routine by then. Cook dinner, sit by the water for a while, sleep. Good trip. No issues. That night, we went to bed around 9:30. Not much else to do when it is fully dark that far from civilization. I was in my own one-man tent. Joel and Marcus were sharing a 2-man about 8 feet away. I fell asleep quickly. I woke up at some point deep in the night. I did not check the time, to the sound of someone saying my name. Not loudly, not urgently, just my name, spoken at a normal conversational volume from somewhere in the trees to the north of camp. I lay completely still. My first thought was that it was Joel or Marcus, that one of them had gotten up to use the bathroom and was calling to check if I was awake. That happens on group trips, normal enough. I waited for them to say it again. Instead, I heard it from the south. My name. Same tone, same volume, different direction entirely. The trees to the south of camp, maybe 40 feet out. I sat up slowly in my sleeping bag. I listened. Silence for almost a minute. Then, from the west, further away this time, maybe 80 or 100 feet, my name again. The same flat conversational delivery. Not a question, not a shout, just my name, stated plainly, from 3 different directions in the space of maybe 4 minutes. I unzipped my tent slowly and looked out. The camp was still. Joel and Marcus's tent was dark and quiet. The lake reflected the sky. The tree line was black and motionless. I whispered Joel's name. Nothing. I whispered it again, slightly louder. The zipper on their tent moved, and Joel's head appeared. He looked at me without saying anything for a moment. Then he said, very quietly, "You heard it too?" Not a question. I asked if Marcus was awake. Joel turned back into the tent and then turned back to me and said Marcus was asleep. We sat outside our tents for the next 2 hours and did not hear it again. We didn't talk much. We just sat there in the dark and listened. In the morning, I expected Marcus to ask what we had been doing up in the middle of the night. Instead, he brought it up himself over breakfast. He said he had woken up during the night to the sound of someone calling his name. He said it had happened 3 times from different directions, and that he had assumed it was one of us. Joel and I looked at each other. None of us had called anyone's name that night. We packed up camp that morning and started moving. We did not discuss it much beyond confirming what each of us had heard. 3 different names, called from multiple directions, in the middle of a wilderness area 5 days from the nearest road. What I keep coming back to is the voice itself. Not frightening in its tone, just flat and plain and conversational, like someone who simply wanted you to know they were aware of you, like an announcement, like something marking its territory by demonstrating it knew who you were. We finished the trip. None of us has gone back to that lake, and I have never gone into the backcountry without thinking about that voice. about the fact that whatever made it knew all three of our names. If you thought that was unsettling, the final story starts with something small. A map, one marked location, and a warning written in someone else's handwriting. But first, hit the like. I bought the map at a small outdoor supply store 2 days before the trip. Standard USGS topographic map, the kind that covers a specific wilderness area in detail. I paid $4 for it, folded it, put it in the side pocket of my pack, and did not think about it again until I needed it. I needed it on day 3. My GPS unit had been showing intermittent errors since the previous afternoon. I suspected a firmware issue. And by mid-morning on day 3, it had stopped updating my position entirely. I was not lost. I knew roughly where I was, and I had a compass. But for the kind of terrain I was moving through, dense forest with limited sightlines, I wanted the map. I sat down on a fallen log, pulled it out, and unfolded it. I found my approximate position, a ridge line running northeast to southwest with a drainage to the east. Matched where I was. I traced my intended route with my finger, down off the ridge, across the drainage, up the other side to a plateau where I planned to camp. That is when I saw the mark. On the plateau, the exact plateau I was heading toward, someone had drawn a small circle in red ink. And beside the circle, in small, careful handwriting, also in red, "Do not go here." I stared at it for a long time. The map was new. I had bought it 2 days ago from a rack in a store. It was still in the plastic sleeve when I purchased it. I had not made any marks on it. Someone had written on this map before I bought it. I examined the handwriting carefully. It was not a stamp, not a printed label. It was handwritten in ballpoint pen, in deliberate small capital letters. The ink had slightly bled into the paper, the way pen ink does on map paper. It had been written with some care. I looked at the plateau on the map. There was nothing marked there officially. No campsite, no trail, no feature of note. Just elevation lines indicating a flat area roughly a quarter mile across, surrounded by steeper terrain on all sides. I sat on that log for probably 15 minutes, just thinking. Then I turned around. I do not know what made me do it without more deliberation. I am not someone who makes decisions quickly or emotionally, but sitting there with that map in my hands, looking at those 4 words in someone else's handwriting on a map I had just bought, sealed in plastic, I did not want to find out what was up there. I rerouted, found a different campsite 2 miles south, spent the night without incident. The next morning, I thought about it more clearly and told myself it was probably nothing. A previous customer had bought the map, marked it for some reason, returned it or exchanged it, and it had gone back on the rack. Happens. Maps get returned. That was the rational explanation. But I keep getting stuck on one thing. The store I bought it from was a small independent shop, not a chain. The owner had told me when I walked in that he had just gotten a new shipment of maps in that week. Just that week. Which meant the map had not been sitting on a rack for months. It had arrived recently. Someone had written on it recently. And then, for whatever reason, it had ended up back in that store, back in that plastic sleeve, back on the rack, waiting for whoever was going to take that route next. I reported it to the Forest Service when I got out, showed them the map. They took it and filed a report and told me they would look into it. I never heard back from them. I still think about that plateau sometimes, about what is up there, or was up there, that someone felt strongly enough to warn a stranger about. I have not found an answer. And I am not sure I want one. If this video got to you, the cabin horror stories on this channel will finish the job. Something was already inside that cabin before they arrived. It is on your screen right now. And if wilderness horror is your thing, trails, deep woods, backcountry encounters, this channel covers all of it. Hit subscribe so you never miss one. Stay safe out there.